Hi, wonderful people out there. We are here again on the program METE. METE means I'm able, derived from the Ewe language in Ghana, showing on Town Meeting TV, where we don't just acknowledge diversity, equity, and inclusion, but we protect it by means of creating awareness and educating one another. The world's nearly 240 million children living with disabilities are being denied their basic rights, according to UNICEF. Among such of these rights is education. So coming on board with me on this topic for discussion is Dr. Sefakor, a reservoir of rich experiential knowledge. She's an educationist herself. She's presently the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion and lecturer at the College of Nursing and Health Sciences, University of Vermont. She's a researcher and then an international disability rights advocate, a policy analyst for UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability. Education, Dr. Sefakor. How are you?
I'm good.
Good, good, good. And good to have you. And I believe this conversation is something that is very dear to you because of how education has helped you so much in life. And education as a fundamental right should not be denied children with disabilities. In chapter 3 of your book, I Am Able, you indicated the tremendous role of your mom for your education. Could you make relevant the role of guardians when it comes to ensuring every child with disability gets educated?
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm so privileged, honored again to be with you. And as Mandela said, our late Mandela said, education is a key to success or to open every door, right? I will say that without education, I wouldn't have been here with you. That is the underlying fact. Education has been one area that I was grounded from my childhood by my mom again, that I can only survive in this world with two things, education and God. Those were the two things that she gave me before she died, from my childhood, right? So when we talk about education, I know the value of it. I know why everybody needs to be educated and why parents, especially with children with disabilities, need to be educated, not to be schooled, right? To be educated.
Educated, that's right.
Yes, to be educated about education of their children with disability. That's one place I want to really be very clear that people or guardians need to know how to educate them, their children. In other words, not to school them.
Okay.
Yeah, why am I saying that? Because it can be very, very destructive if we don't understand the needs of education in our children's life. And we will just think that they cannot be anything productive.
We are all, yes, explain to us.
Now, when we talk about education, it's about the whole being of the person.
Okay.
It's about the person having that self-awareness of themselves, of the type of disability that they have. I want to make a very quick clarification of how you introduced this, that the people with disability living across the world with disability. It is very clear that without education, without the people with disabilities knowing what the value of the education means to them, they can never prosper. That is across the world. Why? Because if we can put every child with disability on the pedestal to be able to equip them well, to educate them well, to make them valuable, feel valuable, that they can only survive through education, I don't think the number that research shows would be something overwhelming. But it's because, again, we have so many. In fact, in the olden days, we are not supposed to be in school in every culture, in every policy, in every country, continent.
Around the world.
Around the world. People with disabilities were denied the right to education in the olden days.
That is formal education, school.
School,
okay.
Yes. And the fact that we weren't part of the initial policies or initial plan, let's just use the layman's term, plans about success in the world, that is the biggest stigma, or that is the biggest barrier
challenge
they have created for us. So for fighting for the rights of people with disabilities in so many years or in the past, we have to acknowledge the fact that some people fought for the rights of people with disability to get some policies in place, policies informed, policies implemented in their lifestyle. And that is why we can also be part of the educational system now.
Okay.
So it's a stage that we have been from nobody of our caliber should be seen in the school system. So we have to be part of the school system, but we have to be dealt with separately or dealt with in terms of mainstreaming. No, we can't mingle with the other students, from that level, then to the time of mainstreaming, mingling with them, or let's put all together, but not of them having equitable access. They can have equal access, but not equitable access. Wow. And then we move from that level to now saying that we have to embrace everybody, to meet everybody at their pace. Okay. So that is a history that we have gone through along the line of not being seen, not being existence, because when we talk about this, as you see in my book, in our culture, we would definitely even throw the child with disability away.
Maybe into the forest
exactly.
or into the river.
It's not different here. It's actually not different here. In the olden days, we have systems laid down to do away with the people with disabilities here. Wow. I don't know whether you heard about eugenics before. Eugenics has been the process that we passed through in the American system, that sterilization was the big part, that they were sterilizing people with disabilities not to produce again. So if you are found to have Down syndrome, they don't want you to get married or produce, right? You are going to be injected, and then that will be the end of it. That is the modernized way. We will throw them away into the evil forest, but they will give you injections to die. It's all dehumanization, right? So we move from that level as human rights fighters, fought and have laws in place that, okay, now everybody has, and the ADA comes in, that we are having people with disabilities in the school system. And then the same thing happens. Like, they are in the system, but they are not having equitable access. Presently, what education is doing, or what we, the disability right advocates about focusing on education, are doing, we are making sure to have what we call universal design learning, to train people, to train teachers, to train community, to train mothers, because UDL framework, which I use very well in my classrooms, is one major focus we are having to demystify disability.
Sure.
When we are talking about UDL framework, it has to do with a holistic approach to meet that child with disability at their pace.
Okay.
And that depends upon everybody with their disabilities. People have multiple disabilities. Some, you can have
more than one.
Exactly. You can have a student in your class who has mental health, muscular dystrophy.
And even a physical disability.
Exactly. Who is deaf. So in my class, for instance, if I want to build my syllabus, I have to sit down and take into account all those disabilities.
Consider all those areas.
Yes. Even as I don't know who is coming to my class, I have to be very much intentional. My teaching learning materials, my method of teaching, and especially the assessment.
Okay.
Yes. So those are the three angles that UDL talks about very, very, very well. Like, how are you conveying this message to the student? In other words, with without knowing anything about them before they come. You have to be very much intentional. In fact, as much as you are planning from building the syllabus, it's like, how about if somebody is deaf in my class? How about if somebody is blind in my class? How about, so if I'm going to use a video, how do I make that video very much accessible to everybody, that even though I don't know whether there will be a blind or whatever. As much as you are providing those resources, the reading materials, you want to provide them in different formats.
Okay.
Yes. As much as you are providing the materials to teach, different formats, and then as much you are done with the planning, the materials, how do you convey this message to them?
Okay.
Your teaching methods, the methods of teaching must be different. So most of this, I will say I'll give a tap on my shoulder because I won the 2022 award of being the best online asynchronous course. Which is very much accessible to everybody. So the students nominated that course, the Global Disability course, to be the one that anybody can take. And as much as we do this, we consider the language barriers too.
Okay. Some
students are not English oriented, like me myself. English is not my first language.
Okay.
English becomes my second language because after Ewe, French and English, you know, as much as you are doing that, you have to consider order. How about if a student from Congo is in my class? How do I make this class very much accessible so that if that student from America reads this, and we are talking about people with disabilities, so we can have a person with disability with all these layers. So imagine we have one person from Nepal. Let's take that. That one person from Nepal doesn't know how to, English is not their first language, right? So I have to think about that. That person is blind. That person has mental health. That person has sensory issues. That person has ADHD, any invisible disability. Those are some of the realities on the ground. Education today, if a teacher can be very helpful to the student, that is what we are supposed to be doing now. As much as we are done with our role in the classroom, let's come to the community.
Okay.
When we are talking about UDL framework or Universal Learning Design framework, it is so much important for the community to know that it is not only for people with disabilities alone. It's for everybody who is left out from the margins.
Wow.
It's anybody.
And when you say it's left out from the margins,
it's like
what exactly do you mean?
That person is discriminated against about so many things. That person does not have equal and equitable access to education or everything as everybody has. That person must be lacking something based on the stigma created, the barriers around.
Okay.
It can be transportation, it can be health, it can be education. Like that person has multiple barriers assessing those things. Why I want to talk about UDL in the community, which we have to educate our people in the community about, is when I have that child coming to school, when I have that Nepalese child who is loaded with different or multiple disabilities, he has to take a ride from community to come to school. That's transportation.
Yeah.
He has to what? He has to, from school, maybe he will go to the hospital.
Yeah.
From hospital, maybe he will go to bank. Not maybe. Those are the resources that we have access to as people just wake up and go to the hospital or just go to wherever they want to go, right? But when we do not take UDL to meet the person at their pace into considerations, we realize that we create more barrier. I'm just going to school. More barrier for that student who is just trying to go to school as everybody. Yes, so that he can be able to open those doors that education opens for everyone. But because those multiple barriers are created intentionally, because as I told you from the beginning, we weren't supposed to be in the system. So that's why some of us realized that as much as we know these realities on the ground, that we were stigmatized, we were eliminated from the school system. We were not supposed to be seen or heard. We were not invited at all. Where we have gotten to, at least we are in it. We are in school system. So whatever we would do to help or to promote education so that the child who is born today with whatever disability can see that, oh, I can also make it. That this is really realistic. It's not like it's written that this some people have done, or you can go to school and be productive or be beneficial to yourself and the community. No, people have actually lived their life and they are still fighting. And when we are talking about education, I am always excited about it because I want to always mention that in every country that I work with or work with people with disabilities, we can see that there are movements behind the scene of education. There are people who fought the fight to push, who are not in the educational system, but they are NGOs, they are disability movements in every country who have been very much proactive, pushing forward the rights of people with disabilities through education. And that is one major thing that happens in every country. Wherever education is very much working or very much effective for people with disabilities, you have to look back and say, who are the backbones?
So when it comes to institutions that are private institutions that are not connected to any way the government, because as I listen to you, I realize that there is the role of the government, there is the role of educators, which is the school environment. But when it comes to private institutions, are they obliged by any means to say that all these things that must be accessible for somebody with disability, are they obliged?
Yeah. I can talk to that very loudly about Ghana, because when you set up, you wake up, as much as I was the resource center coordinator of Ghana Education Service, during those days, when we hear that somebody wants to set up a private school, the first thing is we make sure that they go visit the site and making sure that maybe the person has, some of them, they have gotten a permit to do that with the commission and pass through all this. But the first thing is to see, is this place conducive for people with disability? That is my rule. Is this place going to be very much accessible? Even though the landscape alone, that is one thing. So yes, we have policies in place to make sure that they meet those requirements. I can talk to Ghana's position very well, but because I have fought those fights
in so many ways. With the Ghana Education Service.
Why? Because in setting up or established private schools, we have different entities building for us in Ghana. We can have a private school coming from you as a person because you have money. We can have a private school coming from the MCE, the Municipal Chief Executive. We can have a private school coming from community leaders coming together that we want to build a school for us. We can have a private school coming from the mission schools or the churches, right? So
religious or faith organizations.
Exactly. So when it is a private school, we have to go according to the policies that they have to connect with. We have the policy is there working for the construction of school policy for private schools. So we have to know who is this. Is this the person, one person who is just a millionaire who wants to build a school? What are the requirements of whatever channel we have to pass them to? So they are obliged. When you come to the US system, I think when we mention private schools here, it's mostly mission schools. Yeah, private schools here, most of faith organizations, which are also obliged to do certain things up to some levels. Yeah, because I could remember there was a time somebody was asking how we have to get accessible, reasonable accommodation for a student who was from Congo coming to a private school here. I was very clear.
And was that child with any kind of disability?
But it was very clear that the laws made it easier here that at the end of the day, they advised if he could go to the public school because there are more resources in the public school.
Okay.
That was one thing I learned. And they were very open that we are not able to do this, because the law even says that if this is going to cost you more than what is already existing, then they are not obliged to do that.
Okay.
So this system is a bit different from ours because of the policies working for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
When it comes to the aspect of the child or the ward in person, how do we handle reality and non-realistic dreams? Because maybe a child with disability dreams of becoming this. The kind of challenges that comes with. How are you able to talk that child into maybe choosing something else, and that will not bring some kind of emotional or mental defect on the child?
That's a good question. And I think that is exactly what I do as an advocate.
Okay.
That child needs to be talked through. That child needs power. That child needs to know that she can, or they can also go to school and flourish, right? So what I do most of the time is to build their self-advocacy skills. In the school system, the student is expected to vouch for themselves, especially in the American system. It gets to a point we want to hear from the school, from the student.
The child.
Yeah, not the parents anymore.
Okay.
And that is where we need to build the self-confidence of our children very well from home. And then also as they grow, they can be able to also vouch for themselves. Why am I saying this? That is the biggest gap that we have with people with disabilities in the educational system. They are not able to declare, especially when they have the invisible disabilities, which is not really seen like ours, you know, when they have mental health. The best thing for them to say when you get to school, because you are diagnosed, you have document proving you have ADHD, when you get to school, you approach the accessibility office. Every school has it. Accessibility office, or we have different names for the offices, but it is basically for people with disabilities to go to that office and be, and advocate from themselves and say that, hey, I have this, I have that, I have this, and I need this type of accommodation. We have some of them in our classroom that they have note takers with them. When you are teaching, they take notes for them. It is paid for. That is the reasonable accommodation. But the biggest gap is when a child from Africa like me comes in, we don't have those resources back home. So it's just a hard nut for our children to crack, that even as they know that they have this invisible disability, anyway, from middle school to high school, we are able to follow them in terms of giving them that reasonable accommodation, especially because teachers connect closely with them, right? You come to the college level, we have students over 100 in the class. It's very hard for that professor to identify you and pull you. And most of our professors don't have time for people with disability. Most of them don't have any idea how they will care for you. So that office is the only place you have to go to. But the moment they come to college level, at times some of the parents even deceive them or tell them that, you know what, the ADHD you are having right now is just something. When you grow old and you go to college, it will disappear. It will go off.
Wow.
You will never have it again. And I'm like, it doesn't happen. It doesn't disappear. It is our identity. We live with it. And that's our life. So when these children are growing up, they have this hallucination, or I don't know the term. They have this wild dream that when I get to college, my disability will disappear. Especially the invisible one. They have that in their mind. Parents tell their children from home that don't worry, as you are growing, it will fade out. It doesn't fade out. Disability is part of our identity. When you embrace it, it gives you power to move forward. So for our children to really be empowered, to be able to penetrate through the educational system to survive, it comes first from self-confidence, self-identity, realization, to be able to vouch for themselves. When you have that type of a student who knows what they want, you will know. Immediately they come to the class, they approach you. Professor so please, I'm this name, I'm one of your students in the class. I have this, I cannot see very well. I need to be in front of class. Or I have this. All these are practical things but if they are feeling shy or if they know that it will fade, when they come, some of them even have the idea, the document, or they have to be in your office. You will never see them. You have to look for them. But not everybody has the time. So we need to empower our children to let them know that disability is part of humanity. It's our identity. And then as much as you go or you grow, you have to be able to talk about it depending upon where you find yourself. Because it has a ripple effect. Because if it is not identified that you have a disability, the same thing happens to you when you are given a job. If you don't have a disability, if you try to fade it away, and you know that when you have dyslexia, reading is your problem, and you get a job there, like you are the note taker or you are the secretary.
Wow.
You see? Because nobody knows that you have dyslexia. It's not visible. But the moment you appear in that office and you explain that this is what I carry, you don't see it, but this is what I go through. Okay. When I see words like that, I go dizzy. Or when I have to read, in some offices we read books. Every week we have book clubs and you come to lead and all those things, which is a normal routine in some offices. When you get there and they are having book clubs and you know you are having that, but because you don't carry in it or you don't say it, you are going to be
So we need to be realistic about this. There is one school of thought that also, before we run up, we'll have to end with this conversation. There's a school of thought that feels that we should educate our children formally in areas that, or they should concentrate in areas that will solve also other people's or other persons with disabilities challenges. I don't know if you understand. That means that as growing up and wanting to be educated, I must be educated to be able to solve issues with other persons with disability, so that it's like we are profitable for each other. Is it something that you buy into?
Yeah. I think it's you are bringing back the UDF framework that everybody has to connect to in doing everything that we do in the community. You know, that school of thought, as you said, was the olden day, trying to dismantle the olden day barrier, because the olden day, it's like we are put in a very small cage or put in a very small area.
So I would have said that, is that also not discrimination against others?
Yeah, because you
want to live just
normal, if there is any normal life.
Exactly.
Yes. So, you know, the former package was, if I send my mind back home, people with disability can only make doormats and baskets. You remember in school, when we are learning life skills,
sure,
that is the only thing they can do, or do something about sewing. That is like, we will call those technical skills, but they don't even go to the technical college or polyclinic or anything.
Or vocational schools.
But we expect them to just be at that middle school level or high school level and be weaving doormat. And it got to a time the blind went on the field or on the road to say that, demonstrate that there is no doormat anymore. Like, we have artificial doormat. Nobody is embracing
sure.
Yeah, the same thing happens here. That even here, I see my people with disabilities allocated to serve in some jurisdiction. When you go, you can see them packing groceries from what? When we go for grocery, you can see them packing grocery for people, right? Those people could have been working somewhere in IT, computer, companies. But that is the package which I see here also, that as much as we are working with them, we have a space for them. We are waiting for them to find themselves in this area, not this. That's why when some of us see that, we are still not satisfied. Why do we have only people with Down syndrome? Why do you have only people with, who are blind doing this specific work? No.
Okay, that's a big platform for you.
Yes.
Before we go, I would want you to look into the camera and speak to each and every one of us and our role in helping persons with disability have a good education.
Hello, my people. For every child with disability to be well empowered and also to go through the educational system and live a productive life, we need to empower them.
Productive.
Yes, productive and a life with dignity.
Sure.
Yes, productive life with dignity. We need to empower them from home. I'm talking to parents now, that we need to empower our children to let them know who they are, their identity. Disability is part of our identities, as I always say, part of our identity, because it doesn't fade out. We don't leave it behind in middle school or high school. We don't go and leave disability and come back and carry it. No, we are living, it is part of us. Mm-hmm. And
who
that's,
else?
we need to know from our childhood. When you have ADHD or you have any invisible disability, tell that child that this is called disability, name it, and this is how it works, or these are some of the things that you go through, and others don't go through that, and let them know that everybody has a disability, but this is theirs. This is your child's own. Let them know the next person around them have a disability. That person has a disability, just because if you don't do that for your child, that child suffers a lot when they go out. There are a lot of garbage outside there. So we need to empower our children from the house. And when we go out, from I'm Able, this book, I was empowered. I was empowered by my mom when she told me that you are the most beautiful, you will be my doctor, you are this and that. She actually psyched me from my childhood, and those are the vibes that I got from my bedroom before I came out. Any day that I'm coming out, my mom would tell me something like that. Apart from that, now to my people with disability, when you have that package from home, it's very valuable. That can be the only thing you can live with. When you have a parent who tells you that you are very beautiful, you are very intelligent, you don't need to have any negative word. One word from your parent keeps you going. When I wake up every day, I remember those words every single day in my life. My mom is no more, but as much as you know that somebody is there to take care of you and believes in you, you can live. When you have that power, you go through this educational system with what? A lot of barriers created already. So try to vouch for yourself. Self-advocacy is one thing that I want to empower you with. Talk about what you have, whether visible or invisible. Let them know that this is how yours is, this is how it manifests in your life, because everybody's dyslexia is different. Everybody's blindness is different. Everybody's muscular dystrophy is different. So you want to tell the person, the teacher, the counselor, anybody that is in the school system that I want you to serve me because, or I want you to meet me at my needs, because this is how I function. That is the promotion of the UDL framework that we are encouraging every professor, we are encouraging every educational institution, every staff member, everybody, or even the students around, to know that there is this thing that we have to do collectively so that everybody can prosper, so that people with disabilities can live that life of dignity and very much productive. And with that, we will be living if there is a normal life, we will live that life, and nobody will be worried about us anymore. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sefakor, for having you in the studios. We'll meet again some other time.